Welcome to another lockdown escape flight. Today, we are flying a Virgin Atlantic Dreamliner from New York to London Heathrow. Your pilot today is Steve. I'm not saying he is a dodgy pilot, however, you should fasten your seatbelts.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another flight. This time you find us in... I'm just wondering why it says Air Canada on that caption. Anyway, you find us at JFK in New York, and we're going to be flying this Virgin Atlantic Dreamliner Boeing 787 to London Heathrow. So this is going to be an overnight flight. We'll be arriving at Heathrow sort of early morning, and in reality this flight would take off I think about 9 or 10 o'clock at night from New York, but I wanted to have some daylight, so I did adjust the time slightly. So we'll take off in daylight and a sort of evening or late afternoon, and we'll be arriving in Heathrow sort of as the sun is starting to come up over London. Right, so let's get some power on to our flight deck. Now this is recorded after the Microsoft update. So it's the first time I've flown the Dreamliner since the update, so I'm just interested to see how this flies. I know there's been problems with the A320 on landing. It does tend to float over the runway, and it's going to be a little while before that's going to be fixed. There is a mod that you can do. You can modify one of the files in Flight Sim, but I haven't really looked at that. I'm not great at going that and doing that sort of detailed work. I'm sure it's very easy and very straightforward to do. I might take a look at that at some point. But anyway, we'll see how this plane flies. Just getting everything ready. So that looks pretty good. Now that 946 that you see, 2146, that's actually GMT, it's not local time. So we'll take off on flaps 10. And VR is 165. Switch on the flight director. And we'll put our initial speed to 250. And we'll get clearance from ATC. Right, so that's ATC finished with until we get to the runway. Now we're a bit hemmed in here at this gate, so I'm going to have to reverse out, I think, is the only way I can do it. Reverse right the way out to the taxiway is probably the easiest way of doing it. A few other little planes here. There's an Aer Lingus plane. It looks like there's a baggage trolley stuck in the air. Bit weird. However, the JFK, now this is the hand drawn, so this is the hand crafted or whatever you call it, airport. I'm not sure whether this comes with the default flight simulator or is on the deluxe version. I can't honestly remember. But here's a quick pan of what you get. Quite an extensive airport, of course. This isn't live weather either. I've just put it to scattered clouds, I believe. I really did pick the wrong gate for this aircraft. However, we'll be able to get out of it okay. So we'll get our jetway taken away and get the tug in so that we can maneuver ourselves out of this tight spot without causing too much damage, hopefully. And you can see one of the anomalies of the logo on the tail fin there. You can see it's back to front. Unfortunately, there's nothing much I can do about that. That's the skin that's provided in the livery pack, and that's how it's drawn on the aircraft. I'm sure that'll be remedied at some point. I think that's the least of their worries at the moment. So we'll reverse out, and if we can get this sort of straighten up the aircraft, and then we'll just go straight out. We'll just follow the taxi line all the way out to the main taxiway. There we go. If we just push straight out now, we've got plenty of clearance on either side, so we should be fine. We'll engage our co-pilot, and he can take over the radio for the duration. We shouldn't need to trouble ATC again. Just got the tug driver to put his foot down a little bit. And just straighten it up. Hopefully that will do the trick. That looks okay to me. There we go, that's not bad now. Not bad at all, even though I say so myself. Right, now. Oh, I forgot to turn the APU on. I think everything looks okay up there. I just need to get the engine started. And we'll get a few lights on. I don't think in real life an aircraft would be allowed to do this somehow, because it'd be like reversing onto the M25 or something, causing a major bottleneck. Fortunately, the airport isn't busy at the moment. Just seeing if I can get a drone camera set up for takeaway, for takeoff. I've got food on the brain. So if I can set the camera here, we might get a view coming up the runway. Right, that looks good to me. Just get the displays on, parking brake off, accelerate a little bit and let's get cracking. It's a very easy taxiway. We just go the whole way up this taxiway to the top of the runway. Now I think I've mentioned before how difficult it is to manoeuvre both this aircraft, the large aircraft, the Dreamliner and the 747. And the secret is just to take it slowly. Whenever you're coming up to a turn, you just slow the aircraft right down and then take the turn nice and slow and easy. And it'll be fine. because whenever you're going at like 20 or 30 knots and you're trying to negotiate a corner, that's just never going to end well. You just got to take it very slow. And I think that reflects the true life physics of the aircraft as well. I mean, you have got an awful lot of aircraft behind you when you're sitting there in the pilot seat. A lot of weight, and that the secret is just to take it slow. So I probably need to put that into practice. That's probably that looks pretty realistic speed to me. Sometimes it feels, when you're taxiing the aircraft in the cockpit, it feels like you're hardly moving, that you're going really slowly. But actually you're going at a fair old speed. And I keep tweaking the graphic settings on this as well, because I'm trying to get a good compromise between frame rate and the quality of the graphics, because obviously this is really good graphics. Whenever it's maxed out, it looks fantastic. But if your graphics card or your computer isn't up to it, you can't actually play the game or use the simulator. You just can't do it. It's too jerky. So it's a matter of reaching some sort of compromise. And I keep tweaking little settings and, and hopefully it's not too bad actually. The quality of the graphics is pretty good at the minute. I set it on ultra, but I've actually on custom, and I've turned down a lot of the other settings to try and make it a bit easier and less jerky. Right, we'll just stop here and get ATC clearance, which we've now got. We also need to turn on our runway lights. Get our flaps to 10 for takeoff. There's our view up the runway. Right. Let's take this turn nice and slowly. I don't want to end up in the water. There we go, that was nice and easy. Nice steady turn. Now we just need to get it lined up on the correct heading of the runway, and then we're good to go. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Alright, let's start accelerating. Off we go. Dare I look away from the cockpit for a second?
V1.
We're off course already. Yeah, it's very difficult to get an outside shot without the aircraft veering off in some weird direction. Actually, this is a very steep rate of climb. Anyway, autopilot on. The aircraft will now try and speed up to 250. Gradually reduce the flaps as it builds up speed. I believe the Empire State Building ahead. I believe it might be. So you can see I haven't got the terrain on full, because if I did, it would be trying to draw in all the buildings, all the skyscrapers in Manhattan, and I don't think my card is up to that. So it's sort of got a broad representation of the skyscrapers, and even now it's still sort of a bit jerky. Once we get away from the city, of course, and get higher, it'll be fine. So I'm expecting the journey today to be about 6 hours probably. I'll probably set up the aircraft to fly as fast as I can get it without it overspeeding, obviously. And we'll just set it up to cruise altitude of 36 initially, and then we'll probably climb up to 40 or 41 later in the flight. just let the VNAV take over. I think that works pretty well now on this aircraft. On the 747, I think the VNAV's pretty reliable. So we'll just let that take over. And there's our camera, which we've abandoned at JFK. So we'll get a swoop over the airport. Before we zoom back to reset it. There we go. Now, as I say, this is actually late afternoon in New York, but I wanted to have some decent daylight for takeoff, but I'll reset the time during the flight to the realistic time that it actually comes into Heathrow, which is early morning. It's about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning it comes in. I don't know if it's operating at the moment, of course. We're still, as I record this, we're still in lockdown, so I don't know when flights will return to normal. Hopefully your lockdown wherever you are, whatever your circumstances, is going okay. This is keeping me occupied at the moment. And is probably very good for my mental health. At least that's the excuse I use. Right, just going through a bit of cloud cover now. We'll emerge into lovely late afternoon blue sky. Just trying to see if there's much difference in, because they changed the cloud settings with this new update, so that there less of that sort of grainy look to the clouds. I think they are definitely improved. I think the clouds definitely look a lot better. Having a look, make sure I've got everything. Anything I've forgotten. Of course, there's less functionality in this aircraft. So there's our look at the map or our flight plan. South of England, South Wales, and do a bit of a loop into Heathrow. 27R. Right, well, that's everything set up now. All we have to do is get up to altitude. Flight plan looks okay. Nice little aircraft. It's always like the Dreamliner. I think it's very slick looking. Right, I'm going to stop the recording and commence later. So here we are, just under 13,000 feet. You can see where we are on the VFR map. We've got the beginnings of daylight in the distance. As we sweep in over northwest London. Like the APU's already on. Might as well get all our lights on, ready for landing. The speed brake. Yeah, we need to get our speed down to under 250. We're still going a little bit too fast. So as you can see, the time here is 6:53. Some lovely early morning light over London. Just when the simulator comes into its own, it really does do lighting and weather conditions so well. So we'll just hold at 7,000 for a little while. Now I'm interested to see really how this aircraft performs on landing, if it has the same problems as the A320, which tends to float over the runway when you try and flare to land. The aircraft just wants to take off, just wants to stay in the air. So I'm interested to see what happens with this aircraft, as it's the first time I've used it since the Microsoft Flight Simulator update. So apparently some of the physics has changed, and not for the better. But they're aware of the problem, and they're going to update and correct the problem in the next update, which I believe is going to be sometime early in March. What I find with the A320 is you just have to literally put the engines on idle much earlier than you would normally, and hope that the aircraft will eventually drift onto the runway. But it does like to float, and you can't flare very much. It's sort of minimal flare. Right, we'll get our next altitude set in for 3,000. We'll get that ready, and we can start our slow descent. Can't really make out any sort of London landmarks in the distance. It's probably a bit too dark, a bit far away. the colour of that sky. It's amazing, isn't it? Beautiful. Colours are just spectacular. Put out more flaps and get us, allow us to reduce speed a little bit more. Two pink diamonds on the screen for our landing system. Always a good sign. Oh, I can see there's St. Paul's. I can make that out in the city airport, sort of in the distance there. You can see the shower and the Gherkin, Tower Bridge. Saw the top of the sun, I think, starting to move above the horizon. Get more flaps out, get us slowed down for the final turn. final approach altitude of 2,500. Hopefully we'll intercept the glide slope. We'll turn the approach on. And that should bring us in nicely to the runway. Runway in sight. So we'll just get the speed down, and that will give us plenty of time to get lined up. That's it, get the gear down. And we're now fully flapped. I'm not sure that's the correct terminology. I expect it to judder a bit here because not only are we coming in over a busy London, but we're also coming into handcrafted Heathrow as well.
1,000.
So the little processor is working like the devil to draw everything. Right, let's do this. So far, so good.
400.
Just get that speed right down to landing speed.
300. 200.
Autopilot off.
50. 40. 30.
Right, cut the engines and
10.
okay, it's alright. At least it stayed on the ground. A wee bit heavy. But that was okay. That was a lot better than I was expecting, I have to say. Right, reverser's on. It felt a little bit heavier. I'd like to watch that back to see what it was like, but that was okay. I was expecting the worst, and actually it was okay. Definitely doesn't have the same issues as the A320. Right, nice and slowly does it. And let's find our way to, we'll see where the blue ribbon is taking us. Remember to get all those flaps retracted before I cut the engines. It looks like an A380, which is on its way. It's one of the aircraft that is making its way to the flight sim. The same guys that are working on the fly-by-wire guys who are working on the A320 are also doing a model of the A380, so that should be really good. I'm looking forward to that. Certainly taking it nice and slow makes this aircraft a lot easier now to maneuver. Okay, it might be slower and more sluggish, but at least you're not running rampant all over the airport, leaving tire marks on grass and God knows what. Frame rate's a little bit jittery here, but it is the handcrafted Heathrow Airport. A lot of detail here. Right, here we are, arriving at our gate. Oh, we've even got a geezer directing us in. Forward a little bit more. That's it. Job done. Parking brakes on. Let's get those lights off because they must be blinding him at the minute. We've got ground power by the looks of things. So let's cut the engines. And a quick look at our logbook. $5, that took 5 hours and 6 minutes. Get the jetway attached. Unleash the passengers. You can open the cargo door on that pushback helper, but it doesn't actually bring the guys to unload the cargo with the suitcases. Here they come now. You have to go through ATC to do that. And here we are. As the sun is just rising over London. Can we just take a moment and look at this sky? It's just crazy. Right, well, that's the end of another flight. As the sun's rising. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.